Once, many years ago, a brilliant student came to me and he had a dilemma. He was studious, he was bright, he was a dean's lister in fact, but he was shy and timid and he wanted to belong. And his dilemma was, one of his classmates asked if he could copy from him in the next exam. I tried ethics, morality, we discussed back and forth, to and fro, and nothing worked until in desperation I took out a piece of paper and I drew a matrix on the paper and I said, okay, you are a numbers guy. Please give me the numbers. So this was how the paper looked. Let's call my student Mr. Smart. He has two options. He can show his paper or not show his paper. And his friend, let's call him, what else? Mr. Cheat, okay? He can either cheat or not cheat. So I told Mr. Smart, what is the best possible situation? Of course, the best possible situation is Mr. Cheat will not cheat and Mr. Smart will not show his paper. My student gave it positive +2. Worst situation. Worst situation is Mr. Cheat will not cheat and my student, Mr. Smart, will still show his paper, which is bizarre, doesn't make sense, and makes him a putz. So that one, -2. Okay. The other two situations, Mr. Cheat, if Mr. Cheat wants to cheat, and my student, Mr. Smart, will not show the paper, my student told me, but ma'am, that's a negative thing, because I might lose the friendship, and I might be ostracized. So my student, these were his real scores, he gave it -1. The last cell, what if Mr. Cheat wants to cheat and Mr. Smart will show him the paper? After a while, my student said, Mom, you know, that's a bit worse. So he put -1.5. Okay, that's the matrix. And this one is an example of a zero-sum game. A zero-sum game means if one player, Mr. Smart, what he wins, the other player loses, and vice versa. And the strategy here, the most basic one, would be you try to make the best of the worst. Mathematically, you try to get the maximum of the minima. Worst, minima, maximum. So keep that in mind. That's what we're going to do. So going back to that paper, okay, my student said, let's now look at the minima. So let's look at the 2 rows. My student is the row player. 2 rows. -1.5, -2. Minima is -2. Okay, good. And then the next one, -1 and +2. Minimum is -1. Now, the column player is mathematically equivalent. There's a theorem I don't have the time to prove right now. Take my word for it. Mathematically, it's equivalent, and since they're mirror images, you take the reverse. So for the columns, we take the maxima. -1.5, -1, the bigger one is -1. Very good. And then the next column, -2, +2, the bigger one, of course, is +2. Let's go back. Remember I said make the best of the worst. Okay, so row minima are the worst, -2, -1. The better one from -2, -1 would be -1. And let's go to the columns, the reverse. These are the maxima, we get the minimum of that. -2 and -1 and +2, the minimum is -1. You will see them intersecting, and mathematically, that is the optimum strategy, which means my student, Mr. Smart, should not show his paper, while Mr. Cheat, actually he loses nothing by cheating, so he should actually cheat. Okay. Please do not get me wrong. Oh my God, this will be transmitted around the world. Oh no! Oh God, it just occurred to me now. Okay, please do not use mathematics to justify cheating. Okay, so. But this is a rational strategy. It's where the players act in their best interest. And precisely that's what happened. According to Mr. Smart, his friend really did ask to cheat, and he really did not show his paper. And what about the friendship? Okay, let's just say the friendship was not worth having in the first place. So this one is an example of game theory. It's the most basic one, invented in the 1920s by the American mathematician John von Neumann. Again, remember those two things. We're attacking this with reason. So It assumes that the players are rational, which means they act in their best self-interest. Game theory has pervaded economics, psychology, etc., etc., etc. Perhaps the most famous game theorist is John Nash, played by Russell Crowe in the movie A Beautiful Mind. And that's him over there with his wife, Alicia Nash, played by Jennifer Connelly. John Nash won the Nobel Prize in economics by fusing game theory into economics. And what is very significant about him is that he was able to make significant contributions to math, economics, game theory, etc., even while battling schizophrenia. Okay, game theory has invaded Hollywood. The director, Christopher Nolan, used game theory in The Dark Knight. Okay. Remember the fairy scene, the diabolical experiment of the Joker. There are two fairies in Gotham River. I think it's Gotham River. So one fairy has women, children, ordinary civilians. The other fairy has Gotham prisoners. The Joker placed explosives on both fairies, and each fairy had a trigger. Basically, the Joker wanted to know who would detonate first. So the fairy with the civilians could detonate the prisoners and vice versa. They had 30 minutes to do it. And the Joker said, if none of you will kill the other, I will kill you both. So this is classic game theory written up in many textbooks in Prisoner's Dilemma. So now, there are two players. Let us take the side of the prisoners. Two choices, to detonate or not to detonate. Do we kill the other before they kill us? The prisoners, detonate, not detonate. The civilians, to detonate or not detonate. Same, we have that same matrix. And let us now take, again, the point of view of the prisoners, okay? So, the role player, prisoners. Best possible case if you're the prisoner. Come on, of course you don't want to die. So the best possible case, the only way you can survive is for you to pull the trigger first, push the trigger. So, detonate, prisoners, best possible case, they have to detonate while the other one does not, +2. What is the worst possible case? Worst possible case is the reverse, that they get killed first. So, -2. The other two in the middle, what if they detonate and the other one detonates, they kill each other? That's -1. And what if they both don't detonate? They'll both die anyway, -1, it's equal. And let's do the same thing. Row minima, -1 + 2. Minima would be -1. Okay, -2, -1, minimum, -2. And then let's go down to the column. Maximum, -1, -2, maximum is -1. And +2 -1, maximum is +2. We get the max-min, maximum of the minima. -1, -2, maximum, the bigger one, is -1. And let's get the min-max, minimum of the max. -1 + 2, of course, it's -1. And they intersect at -1, and this is what game theory predicts. That's what the Joker thought would happen. The Joker is crazy, but he's rational. So, the Joker felt the prisoners, it is in their best interest that they will detonate. And it is also in the best interest of the civilians to detonate. But since that's a movie, you remember that scene. The prisoner, one of the prisoners, took the trigger, threw it out of the ferry, and he was ready to die. Sacrifice is not very much rational. And the other one, in the other case of the civilians, it turned out they could not push the trigger too. And the Joker was really going to kill both of them until Batman, as usual, saves the day. Okay, so and now, game theory, I want to tell you how I personally really use game theory to decide what to do on one of the most maybe momentous occasions, not just of our life, but possibly in the history of the country, the EDSA revolution. Unlike Jim Paredes, we were the martial law babies, my generation and I. We were not protesting. Our hair was still like this, okay? We were goody-goodies. Martial law babies meant that when we were born, Mr. Marcos was he was already president. He was the only president we ever knew. Grade school, high school, we did not protest at all because we did not know we were not free. We didn't even know we had no freedoms. Until August 21, 1983, I was an Ateneo freshman, a math major, and all my friends and I wanted to do was to adjust to the very difficult advanced placement calculus, and to all the extracurriculars we had. We never thought of anything else. But on August 21, 1983, when Ninoy was killed, you know, the newspapers then were government-controlled. And the newspapers called, Bobby Gev would remember this, the newspapers called Ninoy a communist. They said he was a troublemaker. And we did not know what to think. Our history books are totally different from yours. Martial law, according to the history books, was something good. That it stabilized peace and order, blah, blah, blah. Yan yung sinabi sa amin. So wala kaming alam. So, but I remember my father telling me, you know, in private, we didn't really dare talk about this in public. My father said, Ninoy was a brilliant orator. He was a great senator. He was Marcos's most potent foe, and he could have been a great president. At the time, we did not know what to think. Remember, freshmen, wala kaming alam. We didn't know what to think, but, sorry, freshmen, sorry, okay? You're smarter than we were before, okay? So, the only thing that nagged at us was, again, logically, rationally, how can a lone gunman go onto the tarmac and shoot an international political figure who was supposedly heavily guarded? It did not make sense. Apparently, the Filipino people felt the same way. There was outrage. Ninoy's funeral was jam-packed. I remember it. I did not attend the funeral. It was, I think, on TV. Snippets were on TV, but TV was censored. There were yellow ribbons all over, and we were singing Tie a Yellow Ribbon. We were protest songs. OPM, yes, Bayan Ko. We were singing Bayan Ko. So all those, the fervor did not stop. That was 83. 84, in order to calm down the Filipinos, the dictator actually ordered 2 fact-finding investigations, which came up neither with facts nor with the truth, and it did not satisfy anyone. International outrage peaked until the year after, 1985, in November. By that time, I was a junior, and we were riveted when Marcos suddenly said, okay, I want to show the world that the Filipino people still have faith in me, so I am calling for snap elections to be held in February 1986. I was 19 years old. Third year, second semester, was a killer semester for us. We had graph theory, we had advanced calculus, advanced stat, we had 4 difficult maths, we have a theology, we have a philosophy, and the semester before, 14 math majors were left, and 4 people flunked calculus, and there were 10 of us left, and we all wanted to graduate. So actually, we were just studying and studying and studying and studying. And yet, November, in between our studies, I recall my friends and I, everyone in Ateneo, we were campaigning for snap elections, diba? We were campaigning for Ninoy's widow, Cory, her running mate, Doy Laurel, who were going to be running against Marcos and Tolentino in February. That was my elections, and we were excited to do it. February 7, we dutifully trooped to the polls. In fact, some of my friends even volunteered to be citizens' watchdogs. Right now, we take it for granted. But at that time, imagine we were still in martial law. There was no such thing as a citizens' watchdog. There was no such thing as an election monitors. We never thought we had to monitor anything, and we were naive enough to think that the elections would be clean. So February, we trooped to the polls, and NAMFREL said, okay, unofficially, Cory won. COMELEC said, no, Marcos won. The nation was in a ferment. We did not know what to think until 29 heroes, 29 COMELEC computer technicians walked out of the counting and said there are lots of irregularities and cheating, etc. That's the first time in Philippine history, at least the history I know, first time in our lives that we ever, and I was a junior na ako, ang tanda ko na, first time pa lang na nangyari yan. And when it came about, well, we were still studying, but we had to do something. Cory Aquino called for boycott of crony corporations. I remember my family, we canceled all the subscriptions to government newspapers, and the only radio we were listening to was Radio Veritas, was the only radio station that probably told the truth. So February 7 was the elections, ang gulo-gulo na, and then for Ateneans, Evelio Javier. Okay, Evelio Javier was a Blue Eagle, like us. Evelio, that's him, the picture in his high school graduation photo. He graduated first honors from the Ateneo High School. He came here. His favorite song was actually The Impossible Dream, and look at that quote. People who cease to dream, he said, are the ones who are impossible. So after graduating from the high school, he came to the college. He took up AB, I think history, government, and Evelio became the president of the Sanggunian, the Sanggu of Ateneo. He went to Ateneo Law School and then went to JFK School of Government to do the MA, his MA. And he made history by being the youngest governor the Philippines ever had. At the age of 28, Evelio Javier was elected. Opposition siya in a martial law era. He made it. He was, at the age of 28, the youngest governor, and he was governor of Antipolo. Remember the elections were February 7, 1986. 4 days after the elections, when votes were still being counted, when we were still boycotting everything and we did not know what was going to happen next, Evelio Javier and his friends were chatting outside the Antique City Hall. Masked men, unknown assailants, they were never caught. They shot him. Wounded, he ran across the park. They chased him. He took refuge in a toilet stall. They ran after him. They shot him again and again and again and again through the toilet. And Father Nebres actually said that in one of his homilies, the bloody footprints from the city hall all the way to the toilet stall was almost like the way of the cross. We did not know who Evelio Javier was. And not even my Ateneo High friends knew who he was. He was a governor we did not know about. But I remember the Jesuits crying on campus. I remember some of my professors crying. And I think I talked to them. And one of them told me he would have been the leader the country desperately needs. And you know, sobra na. Tama na. 11 days after his murder, when I was studying for advanced calculus, we were glued to Radio Veritas. 6:30, Ramos and Enrile said they called for the resignation of Marcos. They said they had lost faith in the government, and they wanted the citizens to join them. 9 p.m., Jaime Cardinal Sin, again on Radio Veritas, said this. He said, the soldiers are our friends. All good citizens go to EDSA between Camps Crame and Aguinaldo. There was no Twitter, Instagram, nothing. Ano ang hirap noon? Nothing. You know, we had 2 landlines, and I think that night, all the landlines in Metro Manila were burning. And I told my friends, okay, this is what I tell my students now. I said, guys, you need rest and you need sleep to fight for another day. So I slept that night. In the morning, when we went to EDSA, there was a festive air. It was really like a fiesta. There was singing, there was a little bit of dancing, there were lots of prayers led by the brave nuns that were in the forefront. And after mingling there for a while, we did not know what was going to happen. We did not know what we were going to do. All we did was we heeded the call of Jaime Cardinal Sin. After a while, I got hungry. So I came to Ateneo. And thank God, there were so many, kanina nag-logistics, diba? Importante pala yung logistics. So, you know, I was talking with some of the logistics team, and we said, okay, the brave Ateneans who are going to be in the front lines, they stay there. Pero tayo, we have to make sure that the heroes are well-fed, are replenished, whatever. So we were in the logistics team just in time, because 3 p.m. that Sunday, the Marines came in with the tanks. And guys, that was scary. General Artemio Tadiar, he was the commander. And according to the people in front, he told the citizens, go away, go home and leave. And the citizens in the front, again, the nuns, many of the nuns were in front. They said, no, we will stay. And he threatened to fire. Okay, go back to math. Two choices. The civilians had two choices, diba? Stay or to leave. And the military had two choices. They could either attack or they will not attack. From the point of view of us, the civilians, the best possible case, of course, was we stay and they don't attack. That's +2. The worst possible case. You know, unlike the Joker, the worst possible case was not death. I was afraid to die. We were not going to die. We were scared. But after Ninoy, and after all the lies, and after Evelio Javier, the worst possible case, rationally, was the status quo. Was we would leave and they won't attack, and the dictator would still be in power. For us, that was the worst possible case. It's -2. How about the others? If we left and they attacked, international media was there. Time and Asia Week were there, and so was CNN. And if they attacked, then the world would see what a bully the regime was, -1. And if we stayed and they attacked, which is what we feared, that's a horrible outcome. But the more they attacked, and if there were going to be martyrs, perhaps, just perhaps, because everybody around the world was watching at the time, perhaps the regime would fall. So we made it -1. Let's do the same thing. Row minima. First one, -1, and then second one, -2. Column maxima. First column, -1. And second column, of course, +2. Max of the min would be -1. Min of the max is also -1. They intersect at -1. And you know, people say that the EDSA revolt, people power, could not have been predicted. Well, for me, mathematics predicts it. The rational choice was for us to stay. We could not leave. So, and the rational choice for the soldiers, they took an oath to the commander-in-chief. The rational choice, which happens in many other countries, the rational choice would have been to attack. But what I say now is, even if all my life I've tried to live with reason, rationality, etc., I am so happy that in that moment in history, we civilians did the rational thing and stayed, and the soldiers did the irrational thing and did not attack, and gave us the payoff +2, which we scarcely hoped to dream. And 2 days after, Corazon Aquino became president, inaugurated in Club Filipino as president of the Republic. You are the millennials. Rightly or wrongly, your generation is perceived to be concerned mainly with self-advancement or leisure, gadgets, selfies, easy A's, etc. But what makes me... But you know, our generation was similar to yours. We did not set out to go to EDSA. We did not set out to change the world. We did not set out to do a non-violent revolution. But what keeps me going, teaching for 25 years, like Bobby Gev, what makes us continue to teach is I know that if ever the time comes, just as our generation had no choice but to do what is right, that either if you want to do it by reason or by emotion, or preferably both, that you guys and girls, and all the colors in between, that you guys will step up, you'll protect our country, and you'll make sure that freedom never disappears from our shores. God bless the Philippines, and God bless us all. Thank you.